Your neighbors are going to walk past your yard this July and stop, not because you worked harder than them, not because you spent more money than them, but because you made one smart decision this May that they didn't. 13 perennials, 1 month of planting, and a yard so alive, so layered, and so covered in color that people slow down on your street just to look at it. These plants do not sit still. They spread on their own. They return every single year. They multiply for free while you are sitting on your porch doing absolutely nothing. And if you miss May, you lose the entire summer. So let's not waste another second. Here is exactly what to plant right now, and here is the exact slope, wall, path, or bare patch on your property, where each one belongs. 13 perennials, and every single one of them is hardy across USDA zones 3 through 9, which covers almost every gardening region in the continental United States. Every one of them spreads. Every one of them comes back. Every one of them is available at almost any decent garden center in the country right now. And every one of them will still be performing for you 10 years from this spring. And plant number 6 is the one that most people have never heard of. The one that is going to completely change how you think about slopes, dry banks, and bare ground forever. Stay with me. You do not want to skip that one. Before we get to plant number 1, I want you to drop something in the comments right now. Tell me what U.S. state you are gardening in, because your USDA zone changes which of these plants will perform best for you. I will be calling out specific zones throughout this entire video. Find yours and pay attention. And if you find value in what I am about to share with you, hit that subscribe button now, because I put out content like this every single week for gardeners who want real results, without the complicated gimmicks. Plant 1, creeping phlox. Most people have never planted creeping phlox, and every single one of them regrets it the first time they drive past a neighbor's slope, buried in electric pink, bright white, deep magenta, and soft lavender cascading down toward the sidewalk in early May. That is exactly what creeping phlox does, and there is nothing else in the perennial aisle of any garden center in this country that does it quite like this. Picture a waterfall, but instead of water, it is color pouring down a slope, tumbling over a retaining wall, or running along a pathway edge for 30 straight days. And unlike most spring bloomers that give you 2 weeks and disappear, the foliage of creeping phlox stays evergreen all year. Your garden keeps its shape in January, February, and March when most other perennials have retreated completely underground. Phlox subulata is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. That is almost every gardening region in the continental United States, from Maine to Georgia, to Texas, to Oregon. It spreads outward by 2 feet or more every single season through trailing stems that root themselves wherever they touch the soil. And that means a single plant you put in the ground this May will be 3 to 4 feet across by this time next year. Plant 5 of them 18 inches apart, and the entire slope becomes one connected river of color within 2 growing seasons. Emerald blue, candy stripe, and scarlet flame are the 3 cultivars I tell every new gardener to start with, because each one hits a different color register, and together they layer beautifully. Plant creeping phlox on slopes, retaining walls, rock gardens, along the front edges of beds, or as a ground cover between stepping stones. Give it full sun, at least 6 hours of direct light every day. Give it excellent drainage. Give it lean, gravelly, or sandy soil. Then leave it completely alone The more you fuss with creeping phlox, the worse it performs. Do not fertilize it. Do not water it once it is rooted. And after the spring bloom ends in late May, take a pair of hedge shears and cut the entire plant back by half. That single cut generates new compact growth, denser foliage, and twice the bloom the following spring. If a neighbor of yours has creeping phlox, walk over with a small shovel in early fall. Every plant this size is ready to divide, and most gardeners will hand you 3 or 4 pieces for free, which is exactly how you start building a slope worth of this plant without spending $1. Plant 2. Creeping Thyme. This is the plant that is going to replace the sections of your lawn that you are tired of mowing, tired of watering, and tired of fighting every summer. Creeping thyme grows 2 to 4 inches tall. It spreads flat across the ground like a living quilt, and in June it produces a carpet of pink and purple flowers so dense that pollinators will hum across it every single afternoon. You can walk on it. You can brush past it and release a scent of warm Mediterranean herb that the neighbors will ask you about the first time they visit. Thymus serpillum is hardy in you. C. Dow, A zones 4 through 9, and once it is established, it shrugs off drought, shrugs off poor soil, and shrugs off neglect that would kill most other ground covers within a single summer. A single 4-inch pot planted in May will cover a 2-foot by 2-foot area by September. Plant a 12-pack between stepping stones, along a gravel path, in a rock garden, or in any low-traffic section of lawn you want to convert, and in 18 months you will be walking on a fragrant purple carpet instead of mowing. Elfin, pink chintz, and magic carpet are the 3 cultivars that spread fastest and bloom heaviest. Give creeping thyme full sun, at least 6 hours of direct light every day. Give it fast drainage. Give it lean soil with no organic amendments. Do not fertilize it. Do not water it once it is rooted. Lean, dry, neglected soil is exactly what makes it explode with bloom. The common mistake I see new gardeners make is planting creeping thyme in rich garden soil, watering it weekly, and wondering why it stretches, flops, and never flowers. Stop watering it. Stop feeding it. In zones 7 through 9, creeping thyme holds its foliage through mild winters, giving you a year-round evergreen ground cover. In zones 4 through 6, the foliage may brown during the coldest weeks, but it flushes back within 10 days of soil warming in spring. After the main bloom finishes in July, shear the plant back by 1/3, and you will often get a second flush of lighter flowers in early September. Plant 3. Vinca minor. If you have a shady corner under a mature tree where nothing else will grow, Vinca minor is the plant that is going to solve that problem for you permanently. It is evergreen, glossy, dark green, and it produces 5-petaled blue-violet flowers in early spring that most gardeners never associate with deep shade. Vinca minor is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, and it handles dry shade, the most notoriously difficult condition in the American garden. The condition under large established trees where surface roots compete aggressively for every drop of available moisture. Under your oak, under your maple, under your magnolia, Vinca minor will spread a knee-high evergreen mat that chokes out every weed and holds soil against erosion, with a root system that reaches out a foot in every direction within 2 seasons. The flowers start in April and continue sporadically through October. The foliage never drops. One plant becomes a 3-foot wide colony in 2 years, and a 10-foot wide colony in 5 years. Bowles variety has the largest flowers and the most consistent bloom. Alba is a pure white version that glows in deep shade. Illumination has gold and green variegated foliage that lights up darker corners even when the plant is not blooming. Plant Vinca minor in any shady area where you have given up and give it one full season of consistent water so the root system can establish. After that, it is on its own, and it will reward you by holding that space permanently without another drop of supplemental water. You do not need to fertilize it. You do not need to mulch it. You do not need to deadhead it. I will add one serious warning. Vinca minor is aggressive. Do not plant it where it can escape into a woodland edge or a natural area, because in the right conditions it will outcompete native understory plants. Contain it with hard edges, a driveway, a walkway, a mowed lawn, or a deep buried edging. Used in the right place, Vinca minor is the single best solution for dry shade in the country. Used in the wrong place, it becomes a problem. Choose wisely, and you will have a ground cover that solves your worst growing condition for the next 40 years. Plant 4 lamb's ear. You want something that looks like nothing else in your garden, that spreads on its own, and that handles the driest, sunniest, most forgotten corner of your property. Lamb's ear is that plant. Silver, fuzzy, soft to the touch, and so distinctive that children will stop to pet the leaves the first time they see it. Stachys byzantina is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. It spreads by underground rhizomes and by surface runners, forming a silver mat that widens by 12 to 18 inches every season. In a full sun bed with lean soil, a single 1-gallon plant from the nursery becomes a 6-foot-wide silver pool within 3 years. Lamb's ear pairs beautifully with purple salvia, deep red roses, catmint, and anything with dark green foliage, because the silver leaves lift everything around them visually, and the contrast reads from 50 feet away. The cultivar I recommend to every single gardener who tries this plant is Helene von Stein, sometimes sold as big ears. It does not flower, it does not flop, and its leaves are twice the size of the standard species. If you pick the straight species, cut off the flower stalks when they appear, because the foliage is the reason to grow this plant, not the spikes. The flower stalks also tend to flop and look untidy, and they drain energy away from the silver mat you actually want. Give lamb's ear full sun, at least 6 hours of direct light every day. Give it fast drainage. Give it lean soil. Wet feet kill it within 1 winter, and the most common reason gardeners lose lamb's ear is poorly drained soil in zones 7 and colder, where winter wet sits for weeks. Plant it on a slight slope, in a raised bed, or amend heavy clay with coarse sand and gravel before planting. Once established, lamb's ear requires absolutely no water. Neglect makes it thrive. In humid summers, the lower leaves may rot, and the fix is simple. Pull out the browned leaves from the base of the plant. Shear the entire clump back by half in mid-July, and new silver growth emerges within 2 weeks. Lamb's ear is one of the few perennials on this list that looks better in July after a haircut than it does in June before one. Plant 5, hardy Geranium Rozanne. This is not the annual geranium you see in hanging baskets at every garden center and big box store. Those plants are actually pelargoniums. They die every winter, and they are nothing like what I am talking about here. Hardy geraniums are a completely different plant family, a true perennial that comes back every single year, and Rozanne is the one cultivar in this entire category that I will recommend to every single gardener, in every single zone, in every single light condition, without any hesitation. Rozanne produces violet-blue 5-petaled flowers with a white center and dark venation from late May all the way through October. That is 5 months of continuous bloom from a single perennial. Most flowers on this planet give you 3 weeks of color. Rozanne gives you 20 weeks. It is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 8. It spreads outward by mounding and rooting at the stem tips, and a single 1-gallon plant becomes a 3-foot-wide mound of color within 2 seasons. It handles full sun in the northern half of the country. It prefers part shade in the southern half, where summer heat is intense, and it tolerates almost any soil that drains. It is also deer-resistant, something that matters enormously if you live anywhere with a deer population, because deer will leave Rozanne completely alone, even when they are devouring hostas, daylilies, and tulips 15 feet away. Plant Rozanne along the front of a perennial bed, beside a walkway, tumbling over the edge of a retaining wall, or as a knee-high ground cover woven between roses and shrubs. Cut it back hard by half in midsummer if the center opens up, or if the plant starts to look tired, and it will flush out and bloom again within 2 weeks. That single mid-season haircut is the secret most gardeners never learn, and it is exactly what keeps Rozanne performing from Memorial Day through the first hard frost. Water it during the first full season while the roots establish. After that, it shrugs off drought, shrugs off heat, and asks for almost nothing from you. If you can grow only 1 perennial on this entire list, make it Rozanne, because no other plant returns more color, more consistently, for less effort. Plant 6, Sedum angelina. This is the one I promised you. This is the plant that most gardeners in this country have never heard of, and the ones who have planted it talk about it like they found buried treasure. Picture a cascading, needle-leafed, succulent ground cover that is bright chartreuse yellow in spring, golden yellow in summer, and deep copper orange in fall, holding that color straight through the first hard frost. Sedum rupestre angelina is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 11. That is the widest hardiness range on this entire list, and it is one of the only perennials commonly available in the American nursery trade that can thrive equally in Minnesota and in southern Florida. It handles everything. Extreme cold down to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, extreme heat above 100, extreme drought, extreme neglect, soil so poor that most other perennials would refuse to establish. It spreads by rooting at every node that touches the soil, and a single 4-inch pot becomes a 2-foot-wide mat in 1 season and a 5-foot-wide mat in 3 years. On a slope, it is unbeatable. On a retaining wall, it cascades like a golden waterfall, the stems trailing a foot or more down the face of the stone. Between pavers, it fills every crack and softens every hard edge. In a rock garden, it becomes the anchor that everything else is planted around. The reason this plant changes how you think about slopes forever is simple. It holds soil. It suppresses weeds. It looks extraordinary for 3 seasons, and it asks absolutely nothing of you after the first month. No fertilizer, no water after establishment, no pruning, no deadheading, no division. You plant it, you walk away. It takes over. I've seen gardeners replace entire hillsides of struggling lawn with Sedum angelina, and watch those hillsides turn into the most striking feature on the entire street within 18 months. The secret is to plant it in lean, gritty, fast-draining soil in full sun, and then resist every gardening instinct you have. Do not water it after the first month. Do not feed it. Do not trim it. The more you neglect Sadamangelina, the better it performs. You can propagate it for free by simply breaking off a 3-inch stem and pressing it into any soil surface. The stem will root within a week. One nursery pot purchased this May can become 50 plants by the end of next summer if you keep taking cuttings. This is plant number 6. This is the one. Put it at the top of your list, plant 7, Black-Eyed Susan. If you want a perennial that self-seeds aggressively, that blooms for 4 solid months, and that photographs beautifully from the street, Black-Eyed Susan is that plant. Rudbeckia fulgida goldsturm is the variety that professional landscape designers reach for every single time, and it won Perennial Plant of the Year back in 1999, a recognition that has only strengthened in the decades since. Bright golden yellow petals, deep chocolate brown centers, 36 inches tall, upright and structural, needing no staking even in wind. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. The bloom starts in late June and continues all the way through October. 4 solid months of color that holds even in the brutal afternoon sun, that bleaches out lesser plants. Goldsturm clumps outward by about 3 to 4 inches per year, but the real expansion happens through seed. Every spent flower drops dozens of seeds, and by the following spring, you will have 3 or 4 new seedlings around the base of the parent plant. In 3 years, your original 1-gallon plant has become a colony of 8 to 12 stems. In 5 years, you are pulling seedlings out of the gravel walkway 20 feet away because you have too many. That is exactly the kind of problem you want to have. Plant goldsturm in full sun in any soil that drains, and give it 1 full season of consistent water. Once it is established, it handles drought, it handles heat, it handles heavy clay, and it handles the hottest, sunniest corner of your yard without complaint. Deadhead lightly through the summer if you want a longer bloom window and a tidier appearance. Leave the spent flowers standing through fall if you want to feed goldfinches, who will tear the seed heads apart through November and carry seed to every corner of your property. Pair goldsturm with Russian sage, purple coneflower, ornamental grasses, and catmint for a classic American prairie combination that holds structure from July through the first hard frost. In zones 7 and warmer, the foliage may hold green well into December. In zones 3 through 6, cut the plant back to 4 inches in late November and mulch lightly with leaves to protect the crown through deep winter. Plant 8, purple cone flower. Echinacea purpurea is the iconic North American prairie perennial, and no fast-spreading plant list is complete without it. 3-inch pink-purple flowers with orange copper cones that rise 30 to 40 inches above the foliage, blooming from early July through late September. Hardy in USD, A zones 3 through 8, full sun, any soil that drains. Almost zero maintenance once established. Coneflower spreads by slow clumping outward and by moderate self-seeding, which means a single plant becomes a meaningful stand in 3 to 4 years. Butterflies land on it constantly, from the moment the first flower opens. Goldfinches feed from the dried seed heads through fall, and the dried seed cones stand through winter like small sculpted ornaments, holding structure in your garden when almost everything else has died back. The cultivars every American gardener should know are Magnus, which has the largest and deepest pink flowers, White Swan, which is a pure white version that pairs beautifully with almost every other perennial on this list, and Cheyenne Spirit, a seed strain that produces orange, red, yellow, and coral flowers from a single seed packet, giving you a prairie-style color mix from one planting. Plant 5 or 7 or 9 coneflowers together, never in a single line, always in a loose group, and within 2 years you will have a stand thick enough to look like it has been there forever. Do not cut the flowers off for bouquets if you want the plant to spread, because every uncut flower is a future seedling. Leave the dried seed heads standing through winter, both for the birds and for the sculptural interest. In early spring, cut the old stems back to 4 inches just before new growth emerges. Do not fertilize coneflower. Lean soil produces stronger, more upright plants with better flower color. Rich fertilized soil produces floppy, overgrown plants with weak stems. This is another perennial where neglect is the correct strategy, and every gardener who tries to baby coneflower ends up disappointed. Plant it, water it the first season, and then leave it completely alone. It will spread on its own timeline, and by year 4 you will have a stand dense enough to start dividing and sharing with neighbors. Plant 9, bee balm. Monarda didyma is the plant that turns your garden into a hummingbird feeder every July. Red, pink, purple, and white, tubular flowers arranged in crown-like whorls at the top of 3-foot stems, aromatic foliage that smells like bergamot and citrus when you brush past it, and a bloom window that runs from late June through August, with a second lighter flush in September if you deadhead. Hardy in USDA, zones 4 through 9. Bee balm spreads aggressively by underground rhizomes, and a single plant becomes a 4-foot wide colony within 2 seasons. In moist, rich soil, it can take over, so plant it where it has room, where you do not mind if it expands, and divide it every 3 years if the center opens up and the plant starts to look ragged. Bee balm handles full sun in the north and appreciates afternoon shade in the south where summer heat is intense. It attracts hummingbirds, bumblebees, solitary bees, swallowtail butterflies, and every pollinator in your zip code. The cultivar I recommend without hesitation is Jacob Klein, a brilliant scarlet red variety that is highly resistant to powdery mildew, the one disease that can trouble older bee balm varieties and turn the foliage into a dusty white mess by mid-August. Jacob Klein shrugs off mildew in almost every zone. Planted in the back or middle of a border, in a group of 3 or 5, in moist soil amended with compost, and by your 2nd July, you will have hummingbirds visiting your yard every single day. Give bee balm at least 6 hours of sun. More is better, and make sure it has good air circulation between plants to further reduce any mildew pressure. Water it during dry spells, especially in the first 2 seasons while the root system is establishing. Cut the entire plant back to ground level in late fall after the foliage browns, and mulch lightly with compost. In spring, the new growth emerges a foot wider than where the old stem stood, which tells you exactly how fast this plant is spreading underground. Other cultivars worth considering are Claire Grace, a lavender purple variety, raspberry wine, a deep pink, and Marshall's Delight, a clear pink with excellent mildew resistance. All 4 cultivars give you months of color and hummingbird traffic. Plant 10, Daylily. Hemerocallis is the most foolproof perennial ever developed, and if you are a brand new gardener reading this, I want you to start here. Sword-shaped foliage that stays green from April through hard frost, flowerscapes that rise above the leaves in summer, and trumpet-shaped blooms in every color except pure blue. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, daylilies spread by clumping outward, not by running or seeding, which means they expand steadily without ever becoming invasive, and a single 3-fan plant becomes a 12-fan clump within 3 years. Divide every 4 to 5 years, and you have doubled your stock for free every single time. That is how gardeners build out an entire border for the cost of a single nursery plant. The cultivar every American gardener should own, without any exception, is Stella d'Oro. It is a reblooming dwarf daylily, 12 to 18 inches tall, with golden yellow trumpet flowers, and it blooms from early June all the way through September, with a brief break in mid-August. One plant gives you 14 weeks of color from a single cultivar, which is almost unheard of in the perennial world. Plant Stella d'Oro along the front of beds, along walkways, in groups of 5 or 7, in mass plantings around a mailbox or a lamppost, and deadhead the spent scapes every few days to keep the blooms coming. For full-size daylilies that grow 3 feet tall, look for Happy Returns in pale yellow, Pardon Me in deep red, and Going Bananas in bright yellow. All 3 are rebloomers. All 3 are reliable across almost every U.S. zone. Give daylilies full sun for the heaviest bloom, or part shade in hot southern climates where afternoon protection helps the flower color hold longer. Any soil that drains works. 1 season of consistent water during establishment, and after that, they are the definition of plant it and forget it. Daylilies are also deer-resistant in most regions, especially when they are planted near more palatable plants that the deer will hit first. The only routine maintenance is cutting the browned flower scapes off after bloom and cutting the entire plant back to 4 inches once the foliage turns in late fall. That is the entire annual maintenance calendar for daylilies. Plant 11, yarrow. Achillea millefolium is the plant that handles the spot in your yard where nothing else wants to grow. Full sun, baking heat, thin soil, drought, wind, gravel, sand. Yarrow thrives in all of it. Feathery fern-like foliage that stays green and low to the ground. Flat-topped flower clusters that rise 2 to 3 feet above the leaves, and a color range that includes yellow, pink, red, white, and apricot, depending on the cultivar. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, yarrow spreads by underground rhizomes at a moderate pace, and a single plant becomes a 3-foot wide patch within 2 seasons. It is deer-resistant, rabbit-resistant, and drought-tolerant to a degree that embarrasses almost every other perennial on this list. Moonshine is a pale yellow variety that blooms from June through September and holds its color without fading in the sun. And it is the one I recommend most often to gardeners who want a reliable mid-border perennial. Paprika is a fiery red-orange that ages to a warm apricot as the flowers mature, giving you 2 color phases from a single plant. Terracotta is a rich orange rust. Coronation Gold is a deeper, pure yellow with larger flower heads. Plant yarrow in groups of 5 or 7, in full sun, in lean soil that drains fast, and cut it back hard after the first flush of blooms in July. That single haircut triggers a second flush of bloom within 3 weeks, and it also prevents the plant from seeding around more aggressively than you might want. Yarrow is the perennial you plant when you have given up on a spot. It is also the perennial that will make that spot the best-looking part of your yard within 2 summers. It asks for no fertilizer. It asks for no water after the first month. Rich soil and consistent watering actually weaken yarrow, causing it to flop and lose color. The drier and poorer the soil, the more upright and vivid the plant. This is another neglect loves it perennial, which is exactly what you want in a low-maintenance garden. Cut yarrow back to 4 inches in late fall or early spring, and it will flush back stronger every single year. Plant 12, catmint, walkers, low. If you have never grown catmint, you are missing one of the most reliable, longest blooming, most pollinator-friendly perennials available to American gardeners. Nepeta Walker's Low forms a soft, mounding lavender-gray clump 18 inches tall and 36 inches wide, covered in small violet-blue flower spikes from late May all the way through September. Hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. Walker's Low spreads outward by mounding and by modest self-seeding, and a single plant becomes a 3-foot-wide cloud of blue within 2 seasons. Full sun. Any soil that drains. Drought-tolerant. Deer-resistant. Rabbit-resistant. Bees and butterflies land on it constantly from the first warm day of spring through the first hard frost. Plant Walker's Low along walkways, at the front of borders, tumbling over the edge of raised beds, or as a soft mass under roses. The contrast between a rose in full bloom and a cloud of Walker's Low beneath it is one of the classic American garden combinations, and it works in every zone from Vermont to Texas. The secret with catmint, and the thing most gardeners never learn, is the mid-season haircut. Cut the plant back by half after the first flush of bloom in July, and it will re-bloom within 3 weeks, carrying you straight through to first frost with a second full round of color. Without that haircut, catmint tends to open in the center, sprawl into neighboring plants, and stop blooming around mid-August. With the haircut, you get 4 solid months of color from a single plant. Cats do not attack Walker's Low the way they attack true catnip, because the concentration of nipetalactone in this cultivar is lower. You can plant it near the front of a bed without worrying about neighborhood cats trampling it. A few other catmint cultivars worth knowing are Six Hills Giant, which grows taller and wider than Walker's Low, Cat's Meow, which is a more compact selection suited to smaller gardens, and Persian Blue, a newer variety with denser flower spikes. All 4 cultivars follow the same care rules: full sun, lean soil, 1 season of water, midsummer haircut, done. Plant 13 Lady's Mantle. Alchemilla mollis is the perennial that finishes the look of a border. Scalloped, soft green, cup-shaped leaves that hold drops of dew and rainwater after every morning shower, and airy chartreuse flower sprays that rise above the foliage in June and July. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Lady's Mantle spreads by slow clumping outward and by moderate self-seeding, and a single plant becomes a 2-foot-wide clump within 3 years. In part shade with consistent moisture, it will seed itself politely around the garden, filling in gaps between other perennials without ever becoming aggressive or invasive. Full sun in the northern half of the country, part shade in the southern half, where summer heat is intense. Any decent soil that does not dry out completely. The flowers are a brilliant chartreuse green that lights up a shaded corner in a way almost no other perennial can match, and the foliage is so distinctive, so perfectly scalloped, that it becomes the plant your guests always stop to ask about the first time they visit your garden. Cut the flower stalks after they finish blooming to encourage a second flush of fresh foliage, and cut the entire plant back to 4 inches in late July if the foliage looks tired or the edges start to brown. New growth returns within 10 days, and the plant looks fresh straight through fall. Lady's Mantle pairs beautifully with hostas, astilbes, ferns, and anything with dark green or blue-green foliage, because the chartreuse flowers light up everything around them. It is also outstanding as an edging plant along a shaded walkway, where the dew-laden leaves catch morning light and make the entire path look like it was photographed for a magazine. The only common mistake I see gardeners make with Lady's Mantle is planting it in hot, dry, full afternoon sun in zones 7 and warmer, where the foliage scorches and the plant stresses by August. Move it to morning sun with afternoon shade, amend the soil with compost to hold moisture, and water it during dry spells. With that one adjustment, Lady's Mantle performs beautifully from Maine all the way down to northern Georgia. So there you have it, 13 fast-spreading perennials, every single one hardy across USD. All zones 3 through 9, every single one reliable, every single one ready to turn a slope, a dry bank, a shady corner, or a tired border into the most looked-at feature on your entire street within 60 days of planting this May. You do not need all 13. You need the 3 or 4 that match your specific sun exposure, your specific soil, and your specific problem area. Creeping Phlox and Sedum angelina for slopes in full sun, Vinca minor for dry shade under a tree, lamb's ear and yarrow for the hot, dry baking corner, where nothing else will grow. Hardy geranium Rozanne and catmint walkers low along walkways and the front of beds. Black-eyed Susan, purple coneflower, and bee balm for the sunny middle of a border. Daylily and Lady's Mantle wherever you need reliable foliage and summer flower structure. And creeping Thyme for the lawn section, you are finally ready to replace. Start with 3 plants this May. Put them in the right spot. Water them for the first month while the roots establish, and then walk away. By July, you will already see them spreading. By next spring, you will have a yard that looks different from every other yard on your street. And 2 years from this May, you will be digging up divisions and sharing free plants with every neighbor who stops to ask what you did. If you have made it this far, you already know that this channel exists to save you money, save you time, and stop you from ever buying another dying annual at the garden center again. Subscribe right now, hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. And before you go, drop 1 comment below. Tell me the top 3 plants from this list you are planting first this May, and tell me what state or USDA zone you are gardening in. I read every single comment. I respond to as many as I can, and your answers directly shape the videos I make next. This is your garden. This is your May. The season is open right now. Go plant something that comes back.